What is going on, everyone? Anthony Drew Gary here, host of the How To Show, and you already know we're bringing you optimization for life, money, and happiness, one how to at a time. This week, I've got the pleasure of bringing back my good friend Josh Huddlestun. We are going to talk about how to run for public office. This is basically a part two of a video we did a couple of years ago on how to get involved in local government. And so we're going to get really practical, really tactical. If you've got an interest in public life in your world, in your city, your town, wherever you are, you can check this video out and hopefully get the ideas to hit the ground running for an opportunity for you to get involved in public life where you're at. So without further ado, we're going to bring Josh on to the show now. Josh, welcome back to the show. It is good to have you again, my man.
Anthony, I am happy to be here.
Fantastic. So you are a city councilman. You've got political aspirations. You've had them in the past. You've probably got them in the future again. But I'd have to imagine you did not come out of the womb knowing how to get from a toddler to a city councilman. And so I want to spend some time talking about this and let's get as practical and as tactical as we can. What does it really look like to go from being somebody that's just an advocate in your community to somebody who is actually ready to step up to the plate and run for office? What's going on behind the scenes there that helps make that happen?
Yeah, absolutely, Anthony. If somebody comes out of the womb and tells you that they want to run for political office, you should probably do a little research and probably vote for their opponent. That's usually a bad sign. Politics for me was kind of a calling. I was a banker downtown at our local community bank, and I was talking to the businesses, and some of them weren't real happy. So kind of by luck, I would say, they said, maybe you should run for office. And I went home and I talked to my wife, and she's like, we bought a house here. We're raising our family here. Maybe that's something that you should look into. So I started looking into what it takes to run for political office. And depending on the city, we're a city of about 30,000 people. We're what's called the Class 2 city. We have council members, and really as easy as it is to put your name on the ballot. You walk down to the county courthouse, you go to the elections office, and you file to run. So it's super simple. But running for office, the actual running of it is a little more complicated than that.
Okay, so it sounds like there's an easy step and then a really hard step. And so I want to clear the air in a political sense real quick. A good portion of our country right now seems to be politically divided. We have a two-party system at the highest levels of our country. And I want to get your take on what that looks like at a local level. Are you married to a party? Do you have to draw that straight line in the sand on day one? What's that part look like for the local common folk?
Yeah, so if you're looking to get involved in local politics, I will tell you this: on a local level, on a council, I mean, we're medium sized. I mean, we're 30,000 people. Parties locally don't really matter. We work together. This isn't like the gridlock that you see in Washington. So some people it scares, I don't want to go deal with the fighting and that kind of stuff. Does that happen in some communities? Of course it does. But by and large, across the country, in the small rural areas, the cities, the 30,000, the 40,000, 50,000, we work together to get things done. A lot of people that run for office have a passion, have a purpose for why they're running. So a lot of them, we work together. I mean, we have Republicans and Democrats, and the votes are 7-0 or sometimes 3-4. So it all depends, and we vote for what our constituents want, what we feel is right. So locally, I always tell people you can't plow a street Republican or Democratic way. So locally, I think parties don't really matter. If you're looking to get into politics, don't let that be a deterrent for you. Now, I will say, with that being said, there's a lot of people that believe politics start local, and I do agree with that to some degree. So if you're really passionate about a particular vision or particular party or direction that you want to see things go, that it does help being involved locally to make a bigger impact, to help people get elected up the ladder. If you're going to run as a Democrat or run as a Republican, at least in the state of Indiana, you need to have voted that way in the previous election's primary.
Fascinating.
So that is kind of what dictates what your party is, unless you go to the precinct committee chairman and get their blessing, and they can re-register you as a different party.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. If voter turnout is so low, primary voter turnout is even worse. What if you want to run for office and you didn't vote in the last primary?
I don't think it disqualifies you from being on the ballot, but I mean, it's just something that they kind of revert back to as your party, and it's used against you too. Like, so if you're running for office and you don't vote, they're like, "Hey, sir, why do you care today and you didn't care, a couple years ago?"
Yeah, there's something to be said about that. You have the right to vote. You ought to exercise it. So you talked a little bit earlier about the county elections office, I think it was, and that's how you formally submit your candidacy. Now, my experience in politics is not much higher than student council, either at the elementary school level or at the college level, really. And so I know back then you had to go get signatures that said, I think this person would be great. And you had to turn in 100 signatures or whatever crap it was. Does that sort of same thing exist at the real local politics level? Do you have to go around and convince all your friends and family to vouch for you before they know any of your platforms or anything like that?
Yeah, so it's an interesting point that you made. And for the local elections, you don't need signatures. If you want to be a city council member, you do not need to acquire a certain number of signatures. What I would do if I was looking to run again, which is what I did, was when I decided that I was going to run, I reached out to my councilman, because all of them are accountable to their constituents, and told them I want to be involved. What does that look like? So all of them have their name on the website, or that you've got a brochure in the mail or something along those lines. Google it. You can look it up. Who's the whatever city you live in council member, and just reach out to them. Tell them, hey, I want to be involved in some capacity. It doesn't have to necessarily be your party that you identify as per se, but reach out to them. Reach out to the mayor, or the town manager, or whomever it is, and ask questions. And ask them how you can help to get involved. A lot of times, a lot of people get started by showing interest in the city, and there's many boards and many different things that help a city run. Maybe a park board or an economic development commission or something along those lines. And that's a really good start to get your foot in the door and identify that and kind of see how local government works. And then from that point, you can make a decision if you want to run. So I would reach out to my local councilman first, and then kind of work my way up the ladder from there.
Yeah, and I think that starts to answer my question in a different sort of way. Is if you can start to get involved in those local boards at some level, you're going to have the backing of at least a small group of people that said, "Hey, this guy's accountable. He can do some good in our city, and maybe he'll." Maybe that's the way to generate your immediate interest. And it really dovetails into the next question that I wanted to talk about. How do you get to know people in your city and ultimately have an impact on your constituency? How do you meet people above and beyond the people that are on your street or the people that you already know?
So I would say a lot of when I first started to run for office, I heard this a lot was you're going against, an incumbent, and, it's kind of an old boys network. And it's kind of one of those things. Social media has changed the game of politics for the better. A lot of people that embrace the social media embrace that is really a way. I mean, honestly, that's how I got to know a lot of people, through social media, reaching out to them. I would see them in various groups, the community groups, and reach out to them and talk to them. That was a really good way to get to know a lot of people. In addition to that is attending functions. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in a lot of communities that a lot of people aren't, kind of aware of. But if you get out and you introduce yourself to people and start talking and volunteer and do cleanup days and that kind of stuff, your name will get out there pretty quick. Especially, like I said, if you're running for the right reasons. So I would get involved. I would attend those functions, like, the volunteer to cleanup day or whatever it is, or help at a local food pantry or whatever those things are. That's really how you get your name out. And the social media aspect of it, join those groups, follow along, reach out to people. If someone needs help with something, reach out, be a person that can lend a hand, because that's what public service is helping people. And when people lose track of that, that's when things get cattywampus. But if you really want to get your name out there, look to help people first, and people will start to recognize who you are.
I couldn't have imagined you saying that any better than you just did. That's fantastic. And I think it really points and sheds a light to the public work aspect of everything that's going on. You're talking about giving up your nights, giving up your weekends when you've got a family and stuff. And so it's commendable that people are willing to do that for the betterment of their city. And so I commend you for doing those types of things. And so let's take a step back to when you decided that you wanted to run for city council. You know, the social media landscape probably looked a little different a handful of years ago than it does now. And so is that the only method that you use to get your ideas and your thoughts out there and published? Were you working on newspapers? Are you doing anything, a professional blog or website? How are you getting your voice out to the people so that they know when it comes down to election day that Josh Huddlestun guy, he's up to good things?
Kind of a 30,000 foot view, because a campaign is obviously it's complex, but a local council position, which is the one that I ran in, obviously is different than a mayor position or a county position. In typically the council, it's a small group, I would say. There's about 6,000 households in the area that I serve. So it's not a citywide election. It's a small portion. I'm a district councilman, so I serve a small portion of the city, and there's 5 other members that serve with me. So there wasn't a lot, when you talk about like raising money, and you think of like dark money, and you think of all these things, these bad connotations that come with political finance. A typical council election, I think I spent like $1,500 or $2,000, and the majority of that was yard signs, which still to this day hold true. Yard signs. So kind of point A to point B, how do I get my name out there? It's a great question. Social media was obviously a huge impact. If I was running for office, if I was talking to someone running for office, I would tell them you have to have a social media presence. A number of reasons. The first one being is you can talk to so many people so quick. You're not wasting a lot of time. You're not, you could talk to thousands of people in a day. The other thing is the yard signs. Yard signs are super important. We did some mailings out to people where you can get a walking list from the county. The county's election can give you a walking list, and whatever party you're running on, you can see who voted for what party in the primary election. So that identifies households for you. I didn't know that going in there. I learned that kind of mistake. Someone's like, "Did you get a walking list?" I said, "I don't know what a walking list is." Go to the county courthouse. You tell me you need a walking list for your district. They'll print it out, and it has the voting records of every individual that lives in that district and how they voted. And then that leads me to knocking on doors. Our last part of we knocked on a lot of doors in introducing yourself, knocking on it. "Hey, I'm Josh. I'm running for elected office," and then giving them my platform and answering any questions that they had.
So that's a straight up pound in the pavement answer. And I think that at the local level, it makes a ton of sense. And so let's talk about that in the sense that maybe I'm interested in running for public office, but I don't have the charisma of Mr. Huddlestun. I don't have a platform that I feel comfortable from a public speaking background. I am terrified to go and knock on somebody's door and introduce myself and saying that I'm running for public office. Is there a path forward for somebody that doesn't have the personal, not the personal speaking skills, but the public speaking skills? And or do you feel that that's just something that you're going to have to learn as part of the cost of doing business here?
I think it's both. I think you'll gain that confidence as it comes, just being comfortable with understanding politics as a whole, and getting used to talking to people. I think that depending on which direction that you go, what type of office that you're running for, if you're running for, let's say, a county-wide office, you're obviously not going to be able to knock on a lot of doors. However, you do have the ability to put together a team of people, your peers and your friends and people that support your vision, and they'll help you knock on doors. So if you can assemble a team of close cohorts that you have friends and family, they'll knock on doors for you. And if your vision starts to stick with people, they'll start to volunteer. So as you gain momentum and steam, that will help. I will tell you, if you don't like talking to people, 2022 and on is a good time for you, because social media, I tell you, is a game changer. I believe I won my election just on social media. My opponent wasn't on social media, but I was able just to connect with so many people by sending them messages. "Hey, I'm Josh. I'm running for council in your district. Is there anything I could do to earn your support?" So I recommend, someone reaching out. If you're kind of in between, or you're not really, wouldn't consider yourself a people person. I still think there's a path forward for you. I think it just looks different than someone that's out knocking on doors.
I think that's a fantastic answer. And so talk to me a little bit about the concept of setting yourself apart from, your peers, or setting yourself apart from your competition, really at the local level. I know that in past memory, the mayoral races have had debates. Does the debate stage lend itself all the way down to other levels of local government, and is that an opportunity, or what's that look like locally?
Yeah, so it can. My opponent didn't want to debate me, which is fine. But I think there are cities and towns across the country that the council members do have debates. So that could happen. It would be totally up to the candidate whether they wanted to debate or not. Some would perceive if you didn't debate, maybe that would look bad, and kind of depending. But yeah, there are debates that happen at the council level. I was lucky and fortunate enough, maybe not, depends, but we did not debate. But I will say, I think the incumbent has the advantage in that retrospect, just because the working knowledge of government is complex. But that's not to scare anybody from getting involved, because everyone starts at basically ground zero unless you have some deep knowledge of the way city government works. I always tell everyone you need a PhD in government to truly understand it. It's complex, just the government finance portion of it. And a city's kind of like, I would say, we have the council is the legislative body, we have a judicial spot, and the mayor. So, I mean, if you're an attorney, you could run for judge in our city, if you reside in there. So there's a lot of different positions to run for. So the council, to answer your question, yes, there could be debates, and sometimes there's not, just depending on the makeup of the city.
You touched on something that I wasn't even thinking of in this line of questioning. Let's talk about having to live in the place that you're looking to run. That's, for the most part, a requirement everywhere, right? I want to get down and talk about the different things that could hold somebody back. And quite honestly, where you lay your head at night could be one of those things.
Yeah, so to run for city office in the city that I live in, you have to reside in the district that you're running. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't hold true necessarily for all offices. There are some House of Representative seats, I believe, that you don't have to reside in the district, which to me is absurd and crazy. But by and large, you have to live in the district that you're going to run in, and it's important too, so you know the issues.
I agree with you completely. I think it would be very difficult to not be in the know of the issues in the area if you weren't experiencing them yourself. And so let's see, we've talked about the geography aspect. We've talked about the fear of public speaking. We touched a little bit on campaign finance, and it sounds like at the local level, it doesn't take a ton of money to get a successful campaign out. And I think that's something that maybe could hold somebody back, in the sense that you think that you got to have these big generous donors and these philanthropic funds backing your campaign, and it sounds like that's not the case, right?
No, not at all. And I'll tell you honestly, when I ran for office, I want to say the statistics said that like 97% or 96% of the incumbents won their election. I will tell you, I've hit on social media hard because I truly believe that it levels the playing field for everybody now, that with social media. But you can run a campaign and have very virtual, no money with social media. I mean, if you just have that outreach, which is kind of a big hurdle for some people, you don't want to, put money toward it, or you're scared to raise money. I mean, that's a reality too. Some people don't, they have that fear of running money. So I would say that I would not let that deter anybody, because really with social media, you can cover a lot of ground and not necessarily raise a lot of money. And I think it's changed the game. And I think we're starting to see a lot more upsets. We'll call them upsets, quote unquote, in the political realm, because I do believe that the social media is holding elected officials accountable now. I mean, you're starting to see, where before, if someone wasn't doing something that you didn't like or whatever, you would tell your friends at the local coffee shop, but now you could tell thousands of people. On the flip side of that, a good council person is in tune with that through social media and that kind of stuff. So you can help solve a lot of problems and really make a difference in your community on social media.
I love it. Love what you're saying here. And so we've tackled that concept. I think we've put that in a good light. And so talk to me a little bit when when we think about the different fears of running, maybe the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, or the fear of not everybody liking you, not everybody agreeing with you. Let's talk for a minute. How do you handle criticism, Josh? Because certainly over the course of a political career, you've pissed somebody off.
I would lie to you if I told you it didn't bother me, but it does. I'm human. I care about the community. That's why I ran for the position that I ran in. In my first couple of years on the council, I really took it to heart and I really let it bother me. The truth is, there's a lot of people that are just not happy people, and they're going to criticize you regardless of what you do, regardless of how great you're doing or not. So I learned to kind of tune that out. I will tell you early on, and it was a rookie mistake, and anyone that's looking to run for office, my advice to you is tune it out quick, move on, keep doing what you're doing, and keep plowing ahead, because there are people that are miserable, that are just kind of angry at whatever it is. So I learned really early on, I shouldn't say early on, it took a little while to recognize that, but I let it bother me for a long time. And now that I'm starting to get more seasoned and learn it, I tune it out, and I kind of don't let it affect me, because I do have, as you said, I have a wife and 3 kids, and I can't be cranky all the time when I come home. So I have to realize, and as an elected official, I have to realize that the work that I'm doing matters to a lot of people, a lot more people than it doesn't. So that's why I'm here. That's why I ran for office. So I really think that the good work outweighs the bad.
I couldn't agree more. And so along those lines, I want to get your hot take, and to make sure that I don't mess this up, what do you think is something that you can do to basically accomplish the most good in your city while you're serving in public office?
It's a loaded question. I personally feel there are things that it's maybe what you can do, or sometimes often what you don't do is also important too. So when you look at the ability of the city council in the realm of what they can do, sometimes being fiscally responsible is a good thing. Maybe not spending the money that maybe you should, but I really believe my job as a city council is to make Hobart a better place, the city that I represent. So there's a lot of facets to that, and sometimes it takes a long time to get something done. But if we can move the needle forward, if we can progress forward, if we can leave the city a little better than I found it, I think that's really impactful. And it doesn't necessarily, I think, have to be a big splash. I think sometimes just maybe if it's adding a new park in an area that didn't have one, or just making an impact where somebody's lives is better because of something that you did, I really feel that is the work of a city councilman.
Yeah, I think that's politics and political life, public life, in a well-rounded, put-together sort of statement there. It's the opportunity to leave the place better than you found it by your efforts, your time, your energy, your expertise. And so, if there are more people like you doing it, Josh, I think that the local governments will continue to be better places. And so, if you've got any hot advice, quick hit types of, I wish I would have known these sorts of things when I was first getting started and first deciding that the running for public office is for me, I guess to bring it all home, what's maybe one thing that you wish you would have known on day one that you know now?
What I know now is don't quit. Don't be discouraged. And I'll tell you, I mean, you're going to go when you're a candidate on a ballot. You're going to be asked to speak at, whatever party it is for a nomination. If you don't get it, don't be discouraged. Don't be afraid to have conversations with people, and don't, not all volunteer work and people that are in your corner, that's not always a good thing. So pick and choose who the people that you surround yourself with when you're running for office. And those are the 4 things that I would say. Don't be discouraged. Don't quit. Make sure you surround yourself with the right people. Not, like I said, not all volunteers and people in your campaign necessarily is a good thing. So pick and choose those people wisely, and continue to work hard. And don't be scared. I mean, that's really, I mean, I'll tell you, we need more young people, energetic people running for office. We truly do. I don't care what party you're from. It doesn't matter. I think a difference of opinion moves the needle forward. I have friends from all spectrums, far left, far right, you name it in the middle, it doesn't matter. I mean, I think that really is what moves this city forward. I think we need good people in local government, because I don't think you change the landscape of this country by electing people to Washington. I think you change it by electing good people to cities and towns across the country, because that's where your daily life is truly impacted, is by what goes on in your elected officials. And it's sad that we only have 16% voter turnout typically for municipal elections. But so I think we need to encourage them. I think we need the young people to get in there, and don't be scared, because I'll tell you what, if you lose, it's no big deal. I mean, it is what it is, but you get your name out there. And when you put your name on the ballot, even if you don't win, you've held that person you're running against accountable, because they have to bring issues up. They have to defend their record if they're an incumbent. So we don't have enough people. I think in our last election, we had 7 people up for election and 8 people running. So only 1 person was opposed. We need young people running. And so if I could give any advice, I would say dive in head first and just do it. The people that want to get involved in local politics now because of what's going on, you got people wanting to run for school board because they think their kids should wear masks, or they don't think their kids should wear masks, and what their kids' teachers should be teaching and what they shouldn't be teaching. It's crazy right now. And then these shutdowns, whether you agree with it or not, I've never seen so much interest in local politics and since I've been involved as it is this year. I'm talking like the last 4 months has been just crazy. People just calling me, asking me questions. How do I do it? What do I do? And I'm like, whoa, it's been crazy.
I think that drives back a point that you made earlier, that, you know, what necessarily happens on a day-to-day in Washington doesn't impact your life as much as what happens on a day-to-day across the street from where you live. This is immediately impacting people and their lives. And so I get it, you know, right, wrong, or indifferent, everybody's got an opinion on it. And so it's the only way you can make your opinion heard is if you say something. It makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, if you drive around that same pothole for the last year that's on your road, I mean, that impacts your day every day. What goes on in Washington, sure, it has a macro impact on you, whether, you know, healthcare, you know, whether you can carry a firearm or not. I mean, sure, those things are impactful, but I mean, whether your garbage gets picked up, whether your taxes on your home or X, Y, or Z, I mean, those are things that your local elected officials are voting on. I tell you what, like, I think that's so important is being involved. And it's not thankless. I mean, you're doing something, whether you're on a precinct or whether you're on a park board or a plan commission board. I didn't realize when I got on the city council, the brunt of the work is done on those boards, the plan commission board that are approving site plans, which have a huge impact on the community.
Yep.
I mean, if you're going to put a truck stop next to a residential area, that's impactful. Yep. If they approve that. So people being on those boards, I mean, that's an important job.
This has been a lot of fun, Josh. I really appreciate you joining me on an extra episode of the How To Show. Last time we were together, you answered all of the how-to cues, so I'll abbreviate it this time. Give me something that you've been listening to lately, something that you've been expanding your mind with. What's something that's been on your mind in that capacity lately?
Are you talking about like a book or?
Yeah, you books. You know what books are, yeah?
I do. I'll tell you what, I've actually been diving into Tim Grover's Winning. It's a book called Winning, and then Relentless. He's Michael Jordan's personal trainer, and he trains a bunch of people. And it kind of hit home a little bit for me, so I kind of resonated with it. And so both those books were great books, and I've been listening to those and reading those, and I'm on my second time listening to them.
There you go. I've heard about this guy, but I've not read the content yet. So, all right, conviction time. I'll go and check it out.
Good. Yeah, it's good stuff. It really changed my mindset a little bit on just kind of how I thought. And so it was good.
Outstanding, Josh. Thanks again for being on the show with me.
Appreciate you. It's always a pleasure.
All righty. Special thanks again to Josh for joining me for another great episode, and I hope you're able to take something actionable away from this, either if it's just getting involved in public life in your area, or if it really is running for office. Everything that you've ever wanted and desired out of life is really just on the other side of your comfort zone, so dig into it, check it out, and see what it means to you. With that said, that's going to bring this episode of the show to a close. Again, hopefully you got something useful from it. If you know anybody that might get something out of it in a different way, or that you can share it with them, please do. And hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm to let the world know that this is a video worth watching, because Josh brought the fire. It is good stuff. Hopefully people will enjoy it. As always, you can subscribe and be the first to know about new content that comes out each and every Wednesday. And if you've got any feedback for the show, got any topics for future episodes, leave me a comment down below. I will engage with each and every one of those. You can check out the podcast as well on the podcast player of your choice. And if you are looking to sell your house in the Indianapolis market, you can get in touch with me in the show notes, in the comments, or at indiedwell.com. Until next time, this is Anthony Drew Gary, host of The How To Show, signing off.